Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Tornado Talk, an inside look at Brevard College athletics. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. here at Dugan's Pub, 29 West French Broad Street in Brevard. Hope you can join us on a Monday night. If not, thanks for tuning in worldwide on Facebook Live. Do want to thank our sponsors, Arby's, Zaxby's, Holiday Inn Express, Hampton Inn, Ingalls, Mission Sports Medicine, Comporium, Pepsi, and of course, our home of Tornado Talk, Dugan's Pub. Exciting show tonight. We're going to be talking a lot of football. The Tornadoes coming off a big 46-10 win in the season finale over Allen University. And we will have three offensive linemen, Jared Long, Nick Eubanks, and Justin Parker on the show in just a few minutes. And we'll also do a full season recap on a exciting 2018 season for the Tornadoes with head football coach Bill Khayat. But first, around the world of Brevard College athletics, some breaking news in women's soccer. The accolades keep on pouring in. Ashley Hughes named first-team All-State and Caroline David named second-team All-State. That's a statewide soccer all-state team that's determined by the North Carolina Collegiate Sports Information Association. So Ashley Hughes and Caroline David, who have just absolutely shattered many of the records for Brevard College women's soccer, and the women's soccer team coming off a great year under head coach Juan Mascaro. Ashley Hughes, first-team All-State. Caroline David, second-team All-State. Since we saw you last, men's basketball played at the Lou Varnell Classic in Suwanee, Tennessee. Couple of games, both ended up in the loss column against Barry and the host Suwanee. Levi Lamb of the Tornadoes had back-to-back 20-point games, including a career-best 23 points versus the host of that tournament, Suwanee. Women's basketball had its home opener last Thursday night to be exact, and a very impressive 77-61 win over Barry College. Destiny Williams, 17 points, 19 rebounds. Shakira Thompson had 15 points. She made 5 three-pointers. 5 times 3, when you're talking about three-pointers, equals 15 points. That's what Thompson wound up with. Taisha Washington, 12 points, 10 rebounds, a double-double, 8 from 8 from the free throw line, and Annalie Bollinger with 11 points. So the Tornadoes looked very good in their home opener, 77-61 over Barry at the Bosch. The Tornadoes women's basketball team tonight are at Bob Jones University. We'll try to get you some updates before the end of the show, how they're doing at Bob Jones. Cyclocross was back in action this weekend, a abbreviated schedule, an event where the Tornado just sent a couple riders to the NCCX race in Harrisburg, North Carolina, most notably Nathan St. Clair with a 9th place finish in men's category 4 and 5 in cyclocross. In football, a big finish to the season for the Tornadoes, a 46-10 win in the season finale over Allen at the Brevard Memorial Stadium. Brevard wins 3 of its last 4 games, finishes the season 4-6, a home record of 4-1, very impressive. Bubba Craven ends his really incredible Tornado career, had 4 touchdown catches in that game. He only had 5 receptions in the entire game. 4 of them were for touchdowns for 95 yards. He broke another school record in the process, all-time career record holder at Brevard College for touchdown receptions, passing Eric Watts, who had the previous record back in 2009 through 2012. Craven, just an incredible career. He finishes his time as a Tornado with 101 receptions, 1,530 yards, and 19 touchdowns. Also BC's all-time career receiving yardage leader. And it was also the final game for 5 other seniors: Devon Edge, Justin Peck, Tyler Gregory, Axel Easter. Easter, by the way, just an incredible career on the defensive side of the ball. 11 and a half sacks in his career, and he goes out with a bang with the big win over Allen. Also senior Ryan Jordan at the quarterback position, who got into the game and had a few snaps towards the end of that game. Dalton Cole, the starting quarterback for the Tornadoes, had a big day. 5 touchdown passes, New career high for him, and it also ties the BC record for single game touchdowns. So that brings you up to speed what's been going on in Brevard College athletics, and we're just a couple moments away from our guest on tonight's show. We'll continue to talk about the football program and their success this season, especially at the end of the season. Big win, 46-10 over Allen University. And we're joined by three of the men who not only made that win possible, but had big contributions all season long. Three offensive linemen. I feel like I'm well protected here tonight by these three. Justin Parker, Jared Long, and Nick Eubanks. Guys, thanks for joining Tornado Talk tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be
Glad
here.
to be here.
All right, so Justin Parker, freshman right guard from Candler, North Carolina. We'll start with you. What was the key to the big win this weekend? 46-10. It looks like you guys controlled things most of the day. What was it like for you guys in the trenches?
Honestly, it just was, we had to execute. We had to be assignment correct, and we just had to make sure we picked up our blocks.
Very good. And Jared Long, sophomore left tackle from Opelika, Alabama. Similar feelings as far as how the Allen game went? You guys feel good out there as far as controlling that line of scrimmage?
Yes, sir. We've just been working hard all year, and we were finally able to put it all together and execute,
And now Nick Eubanks, sophomore center from Lawrenceville, Georgia, Brookwood High School. Nick, you're in the center literally of all that's going on when you guys are on the offensive side of the ball. Did you guys really feel confident?
Oh yeah, no,
playing against Allen?
Definitely. I thought we sent out our seniors well. I think we played hard, played good, played fast.
Yeah, and the results showed 46-10, the final over Allen. Nick, I'd like to stick with you a little bit. You started, at the left guard position as far as your career here at Brevard, and then this season became the starting center.
Yes, sir.
My first question to you is, how was that change, that transition, learning a new position and moving from guard to center?
I mean, yeah, it's a change, definitely. I mean, played next to him all year last year, and that was fun. And then Dede moved to fullback, and I came into center. I mean, I played center in high school, and it was it's different because all plays, different formations and stuff you got to learn. But it was a challenge at times, and times it was easy. And just played it by ear.
Now, one thing your coaches, really emphasized when I was getting to know you a little bit, talking to them, was how important your role is, not just as the center, as far as snapping the ball to the quarterback and then blocking, the nose guard or the offensive or the defensive tackle in front of you, but also IDing the defense and kind of being a captain of sorts.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that process to the audience who might not even know that the center's involved as far as like how the plays are coming together?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's the coaches helped me a lot with that. I came in here really just knowing the mic, and that was it. But coming here, you had to learn the safeties if they were coming down, show the linebacker blitzing. It was you just kind of see who's going to come and who's not going to come and who's going to be where and where. You got to predict it kind of thing. I mean, that's what helps with a lot of the film work and stuff, doing your research on this team you're playing. It's a struggle, but, you got to kind of play it by ear, like I said.
Yeah, and it's just kind of fascinating to me because most people, they watch a game on TV, they see the offensive lineman in the center snap the ball, block their men, a certain style for run blocking if it's a rushing play, a certain style for pass blocking if it's a pass play. But I think very few people are aware that a center like yourself in a lot of offenses are actually part of that play calling process. Are you checking with the coaches as well as far as, seeing anything from them, or is it purely looking at the defense and IDing it from there?
When you're on the field, it's all on you. It's kind of, you might have the help from your offense lineman if they see something that you don't. But, I mean, the only time you get to really talk to the coaches is whenever you get to go to the sideline and you get word from them, talking up from the booth.
Last one for you, Nick, on this position stuff, then I'm going to get to you guys. As far as the center position goes, the actual snap from you to the quarterback, Is that a repetition thing that you guys are just doing it over and over and over
Yes,
again
sir.
in practice?
Yeah, I mean-
and is it different depending on who the quarterback is as far as that exchange?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, a lot of the time if you're in shotgun, the height of the quarterback really is an impact. Because, I mean, we have Tommy Kramer, who's a backup, and he's maybe 5'10", 5'11", and then you have Dalton Cole, who's about 6'3". So, I mean, there's where their hands are is a complete different thing. It's also different for under center where their hands are going to be, how big their hands are. But, yeah, I mean, it's a repetition every day. You start off with quarterback-center exchange every day.
Yeah, and you guys run mostly shotgun, so
Yes.
it's really
Yeah.
that shotgun
Yeah.
snap more than anything. All right, Jared, on to this left tackle position. You know, we've got a couple quarterbacks on our roster. You know, in your 2 years being here, you've seen a couple quarterbacks.
Yes, sir.
Now, when it's a right-handed quarterback and you're at the left tackle position, you're protecting that quarterback's blind side.
Yes, sir.
But if it's a right-hand, or rather, if it's a left-handed quarterback, such as Dalton Cole, you're not protecting the blind side.
Yes, sir.
Does that matter for you, you know, as far as knowing I'm protecting my quarterback's blind side or not?
It does a little bit because I know if I have a right-hand quarterback, I really have to, lock down my guy, because he can't see him coming. It helps a little bit having a left-hand quarterback because I know if something happens over there, he can, kind of see it and step up in the pocket, and help me out a little bit. So it does help having a left-hand quarterback instead of a right-hand quarterback.
Yeah, and I know you've been matched up against some of the more talented, athletic pass rushers in the opponents that we face. Oftentimes, that's the guy lined up on that right defensive end or right outside linebacker position. How much do you notice, exactly who you're going up against? And if you know it's the other team's stud, basically, are you adjusting to that? And are you kind of, even more locked in on that one player?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It starts early in the week, watching film, seeing what they do and all that, and it goes into practice. I get, the person I go against in practice, I tell them, hey, do this. This is what I'm going to see this week, so you're going to have to, help me out and work this, so I can really get prepared, to face that in the game.
Now, while you've played left tackle mainly here at Brevard College, as far as your experience goes, in your 2 years here and also on the high school level, have you played other positions on the line?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't play much tackle in high school. I played mostly guard and center. Like my senior year, I played center my whole senior year. But when I came up here, Coach Lindsay really helped me out a lot and helped me get my technique down and everything. So I was able to make the switch to tackle.
Now, Justin, on to you, freshman right guard from Candler, North Carolina, Enka High School. Now, for the first half of the season, you were kind of if it was, you were using basketball lingo, like a sixth man. You'd be coming in and out, and oftentimes in this package that the coaches have taught me about called the jumbo practice, where, you're almost in a tight end type position. First, before we get into your role as the right guard these days, tell me about that jumbo position. And for people who don't know what the heck we're talking about when we say jumbo, what does that mean?
Well, basically, if we were against a team that had some big defensive ends like Lynchburg or Averett, basically we would have me come in with a little more ability to run block guys instead of our tight ends. That way we could run the ball in tight, close third down situations.
Makes sense. So it's really beefing up that line even more, for power type, performance. Would you notice, and perhaps you can answer this since you're IDing that defense, when the jumbo package would come in, would the defense either be kind of caught off guard, or are you making, did you see them making adjustments?
I mean, yeah, you can tell that they kind of shift their presence over to his side because they know that most likely we're going to run behind the meat. So they usually go shift with them.
Yeah, and then maybe you go the other way and surprise them that way. Makes sense. Now, about halfway through the season, you were elevated to the starting right guard position.
Yeah.
Talk about that transition, going from, mainly playing this, jumbo role to playing right guard on a day in, day out basis.
Well, basically, at the beginning of the season, Coach Lindsay came to me and said, hey, you're going to be my sixth guy. I'm going to need you to basically do whatever I need you to do. And the time came, he said, I'm going to need you to play right guard. And I said, all right, let's go. Transitioning to guard is a little easier from going from like guard to tackle. because you don't got to worry about speed rushers and pass moves. You really just got to grit your teeth and blow your back with these guys in the trenches.
Makes a lot of sense, and congratulations. It sounds like you really earned that position, getting into that starting right guard spot. Now, I'd like to hear from Ollie on this one. Pass protection versus run blocking. They're really two different deals altogether.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me a little bit about technique first with run blocking. If you were trying to teach, a 12-year-old, how to run block, what are the fundamentals in that as far as what you would, convey to him as far as, what you need to do once that ball is snapped and paving that way for that running back?
I would probably just say keep your hands inside and keep your balance low and your feet wide. Just have that good sturdy base. That's probably my main key. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah, anything to add, guys?
Like you said, hand placement, hat placement, where your head is. And you got to, when you're run blocking, you got to play with leverage. That's a big key to it, so you can, move people around.
Yeah. Another thing is, like you said, with hat placement. Like, with hat placement, that'll allow you to be able to get around a guy. Instead of let him come over the top of you, you're able to cut him off. And like they've said repeatedly, your wide base. You got to have a wide base. That way you can't be thrown off balance easily.
Okay, now that we know how to run block, how do you pass block? How do you pass protect? Which is often, just from my standpoint, some backpedaling and you're more upright.
Yeah.
Can you describe that technique?
It's definitely it's kind of like we have a drill called the mirror drill. You got to stay in front of the guy basically. You got to use your hands, of course, to stop the pressure, but you just got to keep your feet moving also. Stay in front of this guy. No matter where he goes, you go, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like you're playing basketball and you're guarding somebody one-on-one. You just got to move your feet and, stay in front of them. And, but you also got to be kind of aggressive, too, like with your hands and all that.
And it even happens at the interior positions like center and guard. Most people think of the tackles when they think of pass protection, but I know you got to get busy too, right?
Oh yeah. Sometimes it'll surprise you when you get some bigger defensive tackles. They could be a little nifty though. They know how to flip their hips well. They'll know how to swat your hands down, and you got to be on your toes.
Okay. Now, I would imagine one of the worst feelings a offensive lineman can go through is a big play gets busted off, and then the flag comes out, and there's a holding call.
Yeah.
How do you stay away from getting called for holding? It might be the number one penalty in all of football. I haven't seen a study done on that, but you see it often in any given game. How do you go through a game and make sure you don't get nabbed for holding?
Just keep your hands inside, really. If they beat you, if they beat you over the top kind of thing, you just kind of turn and push them, kind of make them go the way they want to go kind of thing. So run back and make an adjustment. I think we were pretty good this year. We didn't get many holding penalties, but we did get a few. And, it's one of those things that's going to happen. There's a holding penalty every play. It just doesn't get called. So
yeah, that's what I tend to think too. And I'm curious, what the difference is as far as the ones that are blatant enough for the officials to call, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, most of the time, like playing tackle, I'm kind of out there on the edge, So if I, pull a jersey outside a little bit or something, it's, more visible for them to call. So like he said, you just got to keep your hands inside, like really work to keep your hands inside on the chest plate.
Yeah, one of the main reasons is they'll call the holding is when they see that separation.
Mm.
And when they see that separation and they see them trying to go away from you, they'll instantly throw it. So you got to keep everything tight. You can't let it get away from you. Otherwise, he'll pull, and then they throw the flag.
Right. So it's almost like that defensive line can bait you into it, a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to stick with the penalty theme on one more. False start. I know that drives coaches crazy. Pre-snap penalties. Is that similar to what you described as far as, practicing the shotgun and snapping and that kind of thing, that it's repetition after repetition and you guys all being on the same page as far as the cadence go? Can you kind of tell us behind the scenes what you guys work on in practice to, make sure that there aren't false starts?
Yeah, every quarterback has their own cadence, and you kind of learn what they do and what they say before the snap. And sometimes when we get an false start penalty, they see something, they want to change it during the cadence, and you're just kind of like, oh crud, like it's about to happen, and then you jump, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. Like you said, different quarterbacks have different cadences, so you really have to rep that like in practice a lot and get used to their cadence. And like in the game, you just got to focus. You just got to sit in there and focus and listen for the cadence.
Yeah. One thing is also, false starts. It's like when you're playing against a good opponent, you know when the ball is going to be snapped. So you try and anticipate it to get the jump on them, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Not like that way, as soon as the ball's snapped, you're moving. That way you have that split second where you have some sort of advantage. And then, like they said, sometimes with the cadence, if he sees something and he's in the middle of the cadence and then he says, wait, you might be like, oh, and then you jump.
Yeah,
you're already
sitting in there waiting on it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate you guys, explaining some of that, what you guys go through on the field. Now I want to take it off the field a little bit and get to know you guys a little better. Nick, we'll start with you. Lawrenceville, Georgia, criminal justice major.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your studies and, what you're hoping to do with that major.
I mean, I hope to work into the federal agencies one day. I don't know where exactly. I've been talking with Dr. Powers, who's over at the college. He's a great guy. He has a lot of connections. So I'm hoping when I graduate from here, I have somewhere to go, and I feel like I do with who he knows and where I'll go.
Yeah, a fine program here at Brevard College, the criminal
Definitely.
justice program, and congratulations on that. Now, Jared and Justin, both you guys exercise science majors. Have you? I know you guys are early in your academic career, but have you thought ahead what you might want to do with your degree one day?
I know I just want to be around sports, be around football. So I think exercise science is a great way to let me do that.
Yeah, I've given good thought to becoming a strength and conditioning coach.
Great.
Kind of build up the strength and speed of a team.
Outstanding. Now, I'm from Miami, Florida. I moved up here about 2 months ago, and I love it here in Brevard, North Carolina, at Brevard College. I'd like to hear about each of you guys' experience here at Brevard and, what you think of the place and, how much you're enjoying it.
I mean, I love this place. I mean, having the mountains in your backyard is something you can't really say. I'm from right outside of Atlanta, so I mean I don't get mountains much unless I go up North Georgia. But I love this college. I mean the community around here is pretty amazing. The people on the college, I mean you know everyone. It's not like I went to a big high school. I didn't really know everyone. So when you come here and you kind of see everyone's face, you kind of get to know everyone. Like the football team especially it's a great community of brothers. I mean I love it up here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what he said. It's great going to a smaller school because you know everybody. I went to a big high school as well, and I saw new faces every day. And I like that it's it's very peaceful up here. With nature and it is a big thing up here and all that. I really enjoy that.
With me, I mean, I live 45 minutes down the road. I'd come here to Sunday afternoons with the family. I mean, this is just a wonderful community. It's very peaceful, like Jared said, and it's nice having that small atmosphere where the classrooms are small. You're able to really get in depth with teachers and understand the things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a special place, a cool part of the country to live in, and that small environment at the college, really makes it fun for you guys. Thanksgiving plans? You guys heading home, sticking around? What you guys got?
I'll be heading home tomorrow afternoon after my class. So
Yeah, I'll be doing the same. Go back and see the family.
Yeah, just quick little whatever it is. Back home.
Hop, skip, and jump?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, Nick Eubanks, Jared Long, Justin Parker, appreciate you guys coming on Tornado Talk.
Thank you for having us.
Congratulations on
Thanks for
a
having us.
great finish to the season.
Thank you.
Winning 3 of the last 4. A huge win this past Saturday where you guys just controlled things, throughout. And, psyched that you guys are going to be around, for the years to come.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely.
It's going to get even better, and you guys, offensive linemen, a lot of people, don't get to know y'all too well. I get this stat sheet every week, and it's tough to find your
Yeah,
name in there.
yeah,
And
definitely,
it just comes with the
definitely.
territory, right? But
If it is,
you
it's
know,
probably for the wrong reason.
yeah, that's right. But you guys get it done, and appreciate all the hard work and also the work in the classroom, and hope to have you back on the show one of these days down the road.
All right, appreciate it.
Continued good
Thank
luck.
you.
All right,
All right,
thanks,
thank you,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Nick Eubanks, Jared Long, and Justin Parker. 3 offensive linemen. Really a big part of the Tornado's success. 46-10 this past weekend. Brevard over Allen. And we're joined now, like we are every week during the football season, with head coach Bill Khayat. Coach, good to see you.
Good seeing you, Phil.
Well, since those guys are top of mind, let's start with them. Nick Eubanks, Jared Long, Justin Parker. I know there's plenty more as far as who makes up that offensive line unit. Tell the audience just how important that group is, but also how fundamentally important an offensive line unit is to success on any level of football.
Well, the biggest key to success for the offensive line is communication. And communication starts with the center position. Now, when you say Nick Eubanks, it throws me for a loop because he is known to us as Weeb. So, of course, that's from Weeb Eubank, the head coach of the Baltimore Colts, that won the championships in 58 and 59, and I think a Super Bowl with the Jets. But anyway, we call him affectionately Weeb. And what an incredible player at that center position, being able to ID all the defensive fronts and make all the calls for the line. He's clear, concise with the call, and most importantly, accurate. So when he starts off with the identification of what he sees on defense, then all of the message can be translated to the rest of the players on that offensive line. So even all the way down at the tight end position, he's waiting to hear. So that thing has to go from the center to the guard to the tackle all the way to the tight end, and even in the pass game all the way to the receiver, who needs to know whether he may be hot on a particular protection or not. So think about the game of telephone. I mean, you whisper from one to the next to the next to the next, and all of a sudden, the leaves are green turns into I have 5 chairs in my backyard, and
That's
you wonder
right.
how in the heck it got lost in translation. So that's what is so great and comforting to know that Nick Weeb is there at the center position. And then as you work your way out, I mean, we've had a lot more girth this year inside at the guard position. So, with Big Ulmer in there and Parker, really solid inside. And the time that Lowry spent in that mix, with his history at the position from last year as well, really solid inside. And then when, you're asking him about the position and then pass blocking and things of that nature, it's really the center and guards that set the depth of the pocket. So for the quarterback, heck, he wants everybody up there at the line of scrimmage so he can get back and have plenty of room.
Right.
And then as you work out to those tackles, Eubanks, for us we call him Uni affectionately, and Jared Long, obviously, who you had spoke to earlier, they set the width of that pocket. So they want all those defensive ends way out here, and you want all the interior linemen all up here. So now quarterback, Ryan Jordan, Dalton Cole, they have plenty of room now to see what is happening. So to have all those guys starts with the communication, but then working together because there are so many combination blocks that take place. So it could be a front side combination, meaning the ball's coming that way toward you, and 2 guys are working together. But it could be the tackle tight end. It could be the guard tackle. It could be the center guard. Then you have plays that you're on the backside of. That means the play's going away. So now you have a center and a guard combination, but that's the opposite side. And then you have a tackle working with a guard, but it's the opposite side. So then think about all these plays that you run. You say, oh, let's run power this way. Let's run dive this way. Let's run inside zone this way. Well, the players have to memorize all of those plays to the right, but then you have to be able to run all of those plays to the left because you have hashes in football. So sometimes you're way over here. Sometimes you're way over here. So you have to be able to learn all of that both ways. Then on top of that, so you have all of that stuff in the run game, but then it's not just the same defensive front. So now Team A might have 5 different looks that they line up in. So now you have to learn how to block it against each of those looks. So if you think about how many run plays you might put in the game, you got to be careful not to have too much volume.
Right.
Because that's a lot of memorization. And then you're doing all the gymnastics in your brain before the ball snapped, and then all of a sudden you have to go play. And you want these guys to be sure of themselves and knowing what they want to do. And that's why so many times you hear that the offensive linemen are the smartest players on the team. And that's why, because of all of the things that they have to know. And I was just giving you some ideas on run game. I haven't even talked about pass protection, whether that's drop back, play action, is it the 3-step drops, the 5-step drops, the naked boots, all the different things that they have to learn. So really an outstanding job from all of those young men, and you could see it in the statistics that our quarterback racked up this year. He really couldn't have done that without offensive line.
Yeah, no, it was great to get to know these 3 a little more and to, hear from both them and yourself kind of describe how cerebral it is and how much prep work these guys got to put in to be ready on game day. You think about, a quarterback being in the film room, to the late hours trying to, figure it all out. But I don't think people realize exactly how much an offensive lineman has to prepare.
But think about the changes in the defense. So, Eubanks can make a call, and then the defense shifts. He's got to be able to see that and then make a new call. And then what if they walk a certain defender in the box? Now here comes another call. So everything has to change, and all of those changes are predicated on the movement of the defense. So they do anything different, now all of a sudden we got to make our adjustments. So it's like a chess match before the snap. But nobody else is knowing that. They just see guys line up and watching the play clock go down, and let's hurry up and get the ball snapped. But all of that is happening down there on the field. But it has to happen like this because, like I said, once that one call is made, then everybody else has to get their call in while we're shifting a tight end and motioning in a receiver and, the quarterback's looking downfield to identify coverages. So there's a whole lot of things that are taking place on the field while that play clock is running down.
Well, you mentioned, the success, especially in the passing game, and this weekend was a huge example of that. Dalton Cole had 5 touchdown passes, 18 of 26 for 216 yards. 4 of those touchdown passes went to Bubba Craven in his last game in a Tornado uniform, so a special day there. Let's review Allen a little bit. 46-10, looked like you guys really controlled, the game pretty much start to finish. But, a lot of success, especially on that offensive side of the ball in that passing game.
Well, if you think about where we started, all the way back, and from Davidson into Lynchburg and Maryville, it was slow moving, and a lot of that was based on the quarterback play. So with the way our team developed early, that we made the transition to using Dalton Cole as the quarterback because his skill set was more conducive to winning based on what we had surrounding the quarterback position. And it just took him a while because he was never really exposed to a true passing style offense, a pro style, a good mix of run and pass and play action. So with all of that stuff that we just discussed about the offensive line, that's the exact same things that he needs to learn as the quarterback. So for him to do all that on his own, that is a lot to learn. And, Coach Kruzik worked with him diligently to try to make sure that he was always prepared, but you can't really simulate any of that in practice. You can get close, but not anywhere near what you need to be ready. So once he had all of that experience, then finally it all came together. So you saw flashes of brilliance throughout the year where he had some really, really great games, but they were never really complete games. And this was by far his most complete game of the year. And I just love the way he handled himself and controlled things rather than playing from an area of just, wanting to avoid making a mistake. He really went out there and took charge. And I think that's what really led to his success.
Now, the defense had a big game as well. Shut out Allen through 3 quarters. In fact, It wasn't until the 4:52 mark of the fourth quarter that Allen got on the board with a field goal and didn't allow a touchdown until the very end of the game, a minute 39 left. So for all virtual purposes, they tossed a shutout in a lot of ways on Saturday. Were you pleased with the defensive side of the ball on Saturday as well?
I was extremely pleased with Coach Luke Jakes, who took over the role as defensive coordinator. Coach Gavea was preoccupied, wasn't able to work this game. So that was Coach Luke Jakes, obviously running Coach Gavea's defense, but doing it with his own flair, his calls, and using the personnel that he thought would be best for this game and how to utilize them properly. So that was his first time calling the game for us, and I thought he did a fabulous job of putting these players in a position to succeed. Very, very well thought out from film study. And these players really responded to having Coach Jakes as their coordinator for the week.
Yeah, just a fantastic way to finish the season. Wins in 3 of the last 4 games, 4 wins at home, a 4-1 record at home, and really refreshing to see that end of the year. You mentioned the Davidson game. I'd like to go back to that for a minute. It was a 34-13 loss. The Tornadoes outscored Davidson at 13-0 in the second half, but what really gets my attention is what Davidson did later in the season.
Guilford?
They scored 91 points. That's right. You heard me right.
Right.
91 points in a win over Guilford. And they ended up averaging 45 points and 451 rushing yards per game on the year. And the Tornadoes held them to 354 yards rushing, which, sounds like a lot, but it was 100 under their season average.
Right.
And, shut them out in that second half. Was that a game early on that, although there was a lot of, learning to do and, growth from that point forward, that, looking back on it was a big confidence booster for this team?
There's no question. We had talked all through the offseason about being able to open with a Division I opponent and how wonderful of an accomplishment that would be for a Division III opponent to defeat a Division I. And we knew the obstacles that we had to overcome since we could not practice all of that time during the spring other than a handful and with no shoulder pads and helmets and all that, while Davidson is able to do all that and all the off-season training they get to do, lifting and working out together, then all the time in the summer together. And then that puts them so much further ahead, and then we have to come in and just get started on the 7th of August and only have a few weeks to prepare. And then on top of that, it's not like our team was loaded with seniors and juniors now. You're talking about 66% of the roster being freshmen.
Yep.
So now they're just new to college football, college life. So we had a lot of work to get done. So that very easily could have been 100-0, very easily. But defensively, that game plan, that was something that there's no way that Davidson could know that we were going to do, because when that head coach was at Washington and Lee, we had scrimmaged and didn't show any of that. So
and they run a very unique offense, correct?
Right, their little spread triple option, and that's why you see the number of rushing yards, because they really do. And then they'll get you in the pass. They'll throw 9 passes, but have 400 yards of passing because they're 80-yard pass plays, especially that Guilford game that you'd mentioned. So to hold them to the amount of points that we did, I just think what an outstanding accomplishment that was. And certainly early on, an offense is always going to be behind a defense, and then add to it all of the freshmen that were out there. So it is always going to take a while, and that's why early on you really hope a defense can, hold a team to 3 and 7 and 12. But again, had we hit our stride later like we did offensively, that game could have been different. But certainly there was no fear from our players that they were playing a Division I opponent.
Now, just to continue to review the season, there was a 21-day layoff due to a hurricane. The game against Allen was originally scheduled, week 2, and ends up being that tough layoff. I know a tough spot for the team. Like you've been saying all along, they needed game experience, but they weren't getting it during that time. Tough loss at Virginia Lynchburg, which really came down to a final play. Could have ended either way. Loss at Maryville, but then a real shot in the arm, a 41-36 win in the home opener against Methodist. The crowd there was, just had a thriller on their hands. The defense stops Methodist on downs to seal the win. How big was that for the team to finally get that first W?
Oh, it was tremendous. I mean, that's the most difficult win to get, is the first one. And especially with the amount of time that had passed from the 7th of August until we played that game, I mean, it felt like we'd lost 30 straight. I mean, just because it was such a long stretch. And the season just, it was so disjointed because of that stop, start, then crank it up again. We have a bye week. Now we have a game. No, we don't have a game. Now we got to wait again. So really to try to get some momentum. And there were so many miscues in that Lynchburg game. Incredible opportunities to succeed, and we just let them slide by. And then Maryville was just so stagnant on the offense, with the defense playing tremendous football, hanging in there all the way into the fourth quarter till they finally added some points on the end, and Maryville goes undefeated in the conference. So the team knew that that we have the chance to win. I mean, we're good enough to win. We can do this thing. And I know that they rallied together as a team and said, we're not going to allow any more to get away from us. And it was just very nice to see that kind of point total put up in that game. And then when it came down to it, that's who we had counted on in that early part of the year, was that defense. And they stood tall and won that game at the very end.
A loss at Huntington, and then a tough loss, a heartbreaker of sorts, 29-21 to North Carolina Wesleyan at home. Game, what could have been a potentially game-tying drive at the end falls just short. That when you think about 4 wins at home, just 1 loss, and the 1 loss was that close.
2 plays from the 1-yard line.
Exactly. And then a big win, 38-34 over LaGrange. And I remember you telling me over at Myers Dining Hall, beat LaGrange, just how critical that win was. A thriller once again. The crowd gets absolutely a thriller on their hands as Cole hits Craven. Who else for a game-winning 21-yard TD pass with 19 seconds left. That really the start of this momentum, for the rest of the season.
And it did. And last year, I think I've mentioned this to you in the past, but last year we started the season 1-4. And at the halfway point, I let these guys know just how good of a team we really are. And our goal was to go 5-0 in the back half. We finished 3-2, and that gave us a 4-6 record, second best record in the history of the school. This year, the same problems arose, and we ended up 1-4 after all that stuff you just listed off in the first half of the year, due to the fact that we really can't get started till the 7th of August. But then all the other teams in the conference do that as well. But with all of those freshmen for the second year in a row, it really takes them that long to build continuity, trust, all the things of that nature that will really allow a team to succeed. So now the guys are understanding how we want them to practice. Now they're understanding how they need to prepare. It's all making sense to them. Now let's get on a roll. And with that LaGrange game, finally the confidence, and some of the guys that had been around Brevard College football for a long time, and not just the ones that are on our team this year, guys that have graduated in years past, in the recent past. When LaGrange went up at I think about 1:08 left or so, they went up right there at the end of the game. It was, here we go again, Brevard football. We don't win these kind of games. But we were able to drive that ball the length of the field and seal that victory at the end. And just it was an incredible win because of the type of win that it was, rather than playing maybe a lesser opponent and having a big win or having a comfortable lead and holding there are different ways to win a game, but that was one that Brevard had never seen in recent years.
Now, another road game after that against Averett, very formidable opponent, tough, experienced team, and a loss up there. But then really finished the season on a big note. I just added it up, 74-17 scoring margin. Those final 2 games, win over Greensboro on senior day.
I like the quick math. That's nice.
And then that 46-10 win over Allen. I know that senior class, those 6 players, I heard it from these offensive linemen just then who said, hey, we got to win it for them.
That's right.
Motivating factor, not just for the senior day, but also what was truly their last game against Allen.
You would have really been moved by the words that were spoken from the 6 seniors to the rest of the team. And I had them speak more than once. I just wanted to do it in little shots here and there. But they were the most heartfelt, sincere words that I think I've ever heard from a teammate to the rest of his team. And that came from all 6 of them. I think there were more tears shed in the last 2 weeks, in the last 2 games. But they were just because of how much Brevard football meant to them, what it has done for their lives, their happiness, their family. And truly, they all talked about brotherhood and how much their teammates meant to them. And those are the friends that they're going to have for life, because those are the guys that they trusted implicitly out on the field during all of those Saturdays. There was nobody else out there running in the heat of August. And it was a toaster now this year in August. So you're talking, I'm feeling like 100 degrees out there, humidity. We got the grass with the dew in the morning, and then the heat coming, rising right off it. It's all the steam in your face, and got your helmet on and your shoulder pads. And, I mean, you're pushing yourself to the limit to try to get ready to win a game. And who else was out there pushing them? The teammates. That was it. Everybody else was in the air conditioning watching TV. So, these guys know the players knew how much it meant to these seniors to go out on a high, and what a way to get it done in those last 2 games.
Well, Coach, appreciate the recap. Would like to go over a few other things just to put a bow on the season. And, we talked about the offensive line. We talked about the quarterback play. I'd like to go through a couple of the other units and just really hear from you as far as, the players who stood out this season. First, the wide receiving core. A lot of different targets that Cole uses throughout.
How much time we have?
Yeah, how much time do we have? But, when I mention wide receivers and, who really got it done this year, what comes to mind?
Well, we've talked about this time and again on the show about how that ball gets spread around. Well, you can't spread the ball around if you don't have the athletes around to spread it to, and ones that can catch the ball and run the right route and do something with it after they catch it. So, the list goes on and on. So there's the obvious ones that we have talked about. Bubba Craven, just every record in the book. So what an outstanding player. He will truly be missed as a leader for the position and a great example setter as to how to prepare for a season. But then when you're playing the game, how to approach it. Every play against every defender. Look at the wonderful year Ralph Roman had.
Yep.
He was very high up. He was in the top 5 of receptions until this last game. But I got on him about that drop pass. I hit him right in the number 5. I think there's a hole in his uniform.
Oh, goodness.
But no, what an incredible year Ralph had. And I know you had him on the show and talked about him. And there were some great flashes of brilliance. We had Blake Taylor, who was playing our slot position. What a dynamic player he is. And then you got to think about Devon Edge, got that touchdown at the end of the game, who had played behind Ralph, and Brandon Norris was a name that you'd called early until he got hurt at the back end, and he and Blake Taylor play the same position, and what a phenomenal job he did while he was in there. We're sorry to lose him at the back half, but he'll get well in the off season and be back. Some of the names that we didn't get to mention as much that I think next year we'll be talking about a lot more with C.J. Scales. So Cortez Scales played behind Bubba and has all the physical tools that you need to get it done. But just the way coverages happened to work out at the time when he was on the field, his statistics didn't represent what a great player he is. And then the most dynamic of all from last year, Xavier Brown. Zay Brown, he went out in the Lynchburg game. He is a receiver that will not catch a ball and then go out of bounds and avoid a hit. He will deliver the blow. And this one time it caught up to him because he ended up fracturing his shoulder blade against Lynchburg. So he was out for the year. And he had done so many incredible things last year. Very dynamic player, and excited to have him back for next year.
Yeah, sounds like a tremendous weapon for next year's squad, no doubt. Now the tight ends position, and we haven't probably.
I'm glad that you
given
remembered
them,
the tight end position, because that one always seems to get lost either in the wide receivers or the offensive line. So I do appreciate you bringing it up.
So please, the floor is yours, as a former tight end and as the tight ends coach.
Right. Well, at the tight end position here, it's a very versatile position. So we really utilize a true Y is the letter Y is what they call a tight end, what most people call a tight end. But we also use a term called H-back. So that's more of a second tight end, maybe line up in the wing of the tight end or a tackle and can kind of move in motion. And then it kind of also morphs into a fullback, but then a wide receiver. So they are kind of a combination.
We'd see Tyler Gregory in that role quite a bit.
So now you see Tyler Gregory, you see Martigas Henley, you see Gabe Reblar. So we have some guys, and then Jaden O'Leary. And they were all different types of tight ends. So you couldn't put any of them in and say, okay, they're all well-rounded guys. I had them specialized based on their skill sets. So some you might see have far more receptions than another, but one's more of a point of attack. Maybe one's cutting off on a backside because where they play, it's pivotal to the success based on how you use them. And you can create incredible mismatches with defenses. And that's why you saw Martigas Henley with the number of receptions that he had and then how many touchdowns that he had to go with that. So many times he's matched up with a linebacker, but you have to treat him as a tight end based on where he's playing.
Yeah, it seemed like there would be spurts he just came alive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were other times where he was even more wide open than the times he caught him for touchdowns. So hopefully we'll see some more of that next year. But those are really balanced players because they have to do so much. They have to be a right and left tackle, so they have to be Jared Long, who was on here. At times we asked them to do what Justin Parker was doing in the jumbo. We ask them to do what Bubba Craven does, and then we ask them to do what the running back position does. But, it's really, really going to be difficult losing Tyler Gregory. Tyler Gregory is a guy that, people talk about a utility man. Okay, in baseball. Or you can say a jack of all trades but a master of none, okay? You hear terms like that, but when you hear utility man, you think of a guy that's pretty good at a lot of stuff. And then when you hear the jack of all trades, it's, jack of all trades but master of none. Tyler Gregory was a master of many, and that's what made him different than your average utility man. So he was an excellent wide receiver. He was an excellent tight end, an excellent running back, and an excellent quarterback. So he was all of it on the offense outside of the offensive line because he has an eligible number. We couldn't put him there. He'd probably been pretty good if we did so. So for all of the things that he did on that offense, it was always soothing to the coach to know, okay, we have him out there, so we're fine. We'll put TG, was his nickname. So, hey, we'll just put TG there and we'll be fine. So that's going to be a tough one at that position to lose because of all of the things that you could do as far as your game plan is concerned because of him.
Yeah, almost impossible to replace with just one player.
No, you won't. So we'll have to do that with multiple. But, again, with the things that those guys did at that tight end position, I was really proud of what they did, how they handled themselves. And, it's so important that you are mentally sound, which means don't make any errors. So make sure you're in front of the right player, doing the right thing, blocking the right person, running the correct route, making sure it's at the proper depth and all that. So all in all, I think they had a very good year.
Now the running game as well often flexed its muscles throughout the season, partially behind the work of these guys on the offensive line. Talk about the stable of running backs.
Well, I've told you more than once about Bobby Clarissier. He had an outstanding year. And you may not see it reflected in the statistics or in any kind of box score, but he was a workhorse for us. Very sound in the run game, doing all the proper things that Coach Gallen had taught him to do to be more effective, to get more yards. Just the technique used may get you an extra 2 yards, but there's a difference between 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 4. So I'll take 3rd and 4 all day. What he did in pass protection, more often than not picking up a blitzer and keeping him out of the face of the quarterback so the quarterback could sit in there and make a throw. And just really steady. He's a very unselfish player when he's out there on that field and really rooting on the other guys when they got into the game. So he was a fabulous player. One name that we didn't call as much this year, but I'm telling you in the next season and the seasons after, Aaron Bennett. fabulous running back, and I think he's a very well-rounded running back. He came in there as a change of pace with more of like the speed back, but he can really do it all. And I think catching the ball out of the backfield, running inside, running outside, you just think of him as an outside runner because that's kind of how we used him because we had a lot of different backs where we also incorporated Tyler Gregory as a running back. So he's a name that didn't get called as much as he will in the future. And, McCall Phillips, you got to call his name in this game, had a nice long run against Allen.
51-yard touchdown run.
And, yeah, fabulous. And he tries so hard, works so hard, very well-rounded student. He's involved in so many things on this campus. If there's an event going on, he's either participating in it or he's in there in the audience to cheer somebody on.
That's right. I handed him the mic at one of these events.
That's right. And what an outstanding young man. And he's really worked for it. And, I was happy for him to see him get that. But when he's been in to run that ball, there's always been tough, hard, physical runs. And the same can be said for Christian Michaels. So he didn't get a whole lot of work this year. When he did, there were some breakdowns, in the blocking scheme. So he didn't get to really show what all he could do since all the way back at the Middle Georgia scrimmage. But another fabulous player that's going to be able to do some things for us.
Now, so we've covered the offense to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start in the trenches. That defensive line, put up some big sack numbers this year. What comes to mind when I mention D-line?
You got to say Axel Easter, first and foremost. It'll be interesting to see when all this voting comes out with the awards that are given, but he certainly should end up with a lot of accolades. Just an outstanding player. Talk about playing with effort on every snap, and really just doesn't even want to come out of the game, and it just won't allow himself to be tired, even if he's completely exhausted, having chased a quarterback down from behind, and then the quarterback gets flushed out of the pocket, and he's running down the field doing that, and then trying to get a tackle for loss. Then he's going for a sack, and he's still in there running and running and running. So football, much like Bubba Craven, football is so important to him. He just really, truly loves the game, and that was reflected in all of those sacks that he got. But he also got some help inside, so Kyle Fennell playing at the other defensive end, freshman, got a lot of time, did a lot of wonderful things for us. Caleb Woods, who ended up getting inserted into that defensive line. I know you called his name for some interception, fumble recoveries, so forced fumbles, some things of that nature. Played really well. And then, of course, inside, we got Big Crawford inside, who has a lot of game experience and savvy enough to do some things inside to make sure that run gets stuffed inside. And then Big Lou Williams, what a tremendous asset he was as a freshman coming in. When you take a look at the size of that man, there's no way you would think that he was a freshman. And he certainly didn't play as a freshman. Believe it or not, he actually got a lot of votes from our coaching staff to be a captain. So
fantastic.
That says a lot about how he approaches the game, how he handles his teammates, how he supports the teammates. So incredible inside. But then we got some wonderful young guys that didn't see a whole lot of time. Brent Hallmark, interior lineman, made the transition from fullback to defense. And, the games this year didn't really allow for us to get other players in there as much as we would have liked to because they were all really very competitive. So even in our losses, we really never got blown out. Other than Huntington was probably the biggest gap. But as an away game, you can't really travel your whole roster. So a lot of those guys weren't able to come. So it really wasn't until this last game. But, he's a tremendous player. He'd be a great future for us. Dylan Wisdom, another guy inside, great big body. We're really going to be stout inside. We got Ryan Dove on defensive end. So we got some guys that you'll be calling out in the future.
And Axel Easter ended up leading the USA South in sacks with 8, and defense of the Tornadoes, #1 in the USA South with 26 sacks. Now, the linebacker position, getting it done both against the pass and the rush.
Right, and the face of the linebacker core really changed One of the guys that we had in our Champions Club, I think I talked about all the criteria to reach that, but basically you're doing everything right in every facet of life, football, school, all of it. Sam Butikoffer. And, unfortunately had a knee injury that knocked him out for the year. And, obviously he was really the anchor on that defense. He was the one, and we lost him. And then we had hometown boy Tanner Pettit at linebacker, and he was able to play early, here from Brevard High School. Another leader on that defense, he went down early in the season. So that was two guys that we were really counting on to do some things, and that way all the other guys that were going to be coming in could spot play. Now, instead of spot playing, we now have Chris Diaz in there starting at linebacker, and we have John Burton in there starting at linebacker. We have Jaquan George in there. So we had a lot of guys in there playing a significant amount of football that really even they themselves were probably not thinking they were going to have that much time. So it was comforting for them to know what they had in front of them and what we'll talk about shortly behind them. So that defensive line in front of them and the secondary behind them really helped out. And those guys were able to make plays and some ones that were game-changing plays. And obviously well coached by, Coach Randy Finley, Coach Gunny,
That's
and
right.
Coach Gavea at that linebacker position. So very impressed with what they were able to do, especially being thrown in the fire midseason like that.
Well, and you mentioned the secondary, 11 interceptions for the Tornadoes this year. Also 11 fumble recoveries. It all adds up to 22 turnovers. The 22 turnovers second in the USA South. The 11 fumbles recovered first in the USA South. Tell us about that secondary and how they, not only got it done, getting that turnover chain out there, or that turnover belt, rather, but also, locking down some talented wideouts from some of these opponents.
And I think that we ended up finishing top in pass defense, I believe. And that starts with that pass rush in there from Axel Easter, but it also speaks volumes to the blanket coverage that was going on the back end. And, even outside of the numbers of interceptions that you saw with what Quentin Jackson was able to do. But there were names like Andreas Wyatt, who you don't see in there because no one's going to throw anywhere near him because why? The guy's covered and is never going to get open. And there were a lot of fabulous receivers in this conference, but they didn't do a whole heck of a lot when they played Brevard. And so whether you're talking about Trey Charles, just back there, ball hawking everything. Talking about Quentin Jackson, Andreas Wyatt. Another great name was Marcus Simpson, who was an extremely talented corner and played great football until he unfortunately got hurt toward the back end of the year. But those guys just so sound back there. Wesley Ross, who was on your show, steady, always in the right place, making a lot of tackles because he's where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. Brandon Whitfield. We had so many guys back there that you could put in because they were just going to do the right thing. They're going to be sound, but they were also very confident players. And, we were able to add some young guys in there. Vinny Sneed got some time, Isaac Crisp. So now you got some freshmen that were able to play with the guys that had some experience. So that was really probably our most experienced position overall back there in the secondary. And Coach Jakes and Coach Jaron really had those guys playing at the top of their game.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the Tornadoes, in fact, number one in the USA South in passing yards allowed per game, held opponents to 170 yards per game. So number one in that category. And Quentin Jackson ended up leading the conference in interceptions with 4 of them. You mentioned Trey Charles, big part of the special teams. What a dynamic player as far as that return game. One special teams player of the week, 1 week a little while back for the USA South. Not just Charles, but how about the special teams this year?
Right, and I've talked to you in the past about the way we approach special teams. So that is actually how we start our spring practices. That's how we start our fall practices. It's all special teams. There are no offense or defensive snaps. It is, to me, the most important because of how it can change a game, whether that's field position and how important that is, or blocking a punt, returning a kick, returning a punt. All of those are devastating to the opponent if you get your punt blocked. It is devastating to the opponent if they just scored kickoff and then you return it for a touchdown, and now all of that went for naught. So that's very important to us, and we stress it And, of course, it's great having Coach Jaron leading that up now as a Virginia Tech grad.
Learn from the best in that category,
yeah,
right?
with all the things they do there on special teams. So it's really nice to have him running that now full time and doing a fabulous job getting the information to the players. But during the season, it was a balance between Coach Jakes and Coach Jaron. We split the phases up, but they really worked together well. And to have all of these players know, because special teams is one of those where a lot of teams will just take it like, oh, what do I have on that? Oh, I have that guy. Okay, fine. And you don't really approach it the same in preparation the way you do for the offense and defense. You feel like, oh, I don't want to mess up on offense. I got to know all the plays. I don't want to screw anything up on defense. I got to make sure I know all the fronts and coverages and calls. But then when it comes to special teams, what do I have? Oh, I block him. Okay, fine. And that's the approach that many teams take, and we don't allow that. So you take the exact same approach that you take on offense and defense with the special teams in your preparation. So that allows us to get defenders on the right bodies, blocking these guys that are coming down, and that now gives Trey Charles a lot more room to work. Now, Trey is one of those players that you could probably not block anyone, and he's going to get you some yards. But now you add the element of people getting blocked. Now he becomes dynamic, tremendous, and what a valuable player he is, because now the field position has changed, and now the offense has to drive 20 yards to get a touchdown rather than 80.
And we've talked about it before, but the wide receiver converted into punter as well, and also doing some work on kickoffs. Ralph Roman III, what a weapon he ended up being.
Yeah, and he was great because of some of the things that we did, especially with our rugby punt is what it's referred to as in the game, where rather than the more traditional pro-style punt where you just snap, you have a personal protector, two guys on the wings, and punt it. We use a shield, which most of the teams in college use now, which is three bigger players about halfway between the line of scrimmage and where the punter is, and then they all roll out. That's what makes it a rugby punt. So it all looks like they're kind of running to the side, and then we punt the ball. And he was able to get us some yards on a fake punt doing that, but he can also allow the coverage team to get down the field before he punts it. We had some balls pinned inside the 10-yard line, inside the 20, but he's very savvy back there, very calm. A lot of times punters really only get out to punt or maybe to hold, but to be playing all of that football, I mean, there's no fear of anything across the line of scrimmage. But a great athlete. And then we added him to that kickoff just because of his leg strength, and we got our first touchback of the year using Ralph Roman. So, I mean, he looks a little like Mark Mosley for the Redskins. I haven't seen a little bit of a straight on in quite some time, but it's just great to have him.
Yeah, well, Coach, appreciate you being that thorough with the season recap. Final thoughts on the 2018 season? When we look back in the history books, what are people not going to know about this team as far as what made them special?
Well, I think it's what transpired behind the scenes to allow Bubba Craven to set the records that he did. What was happening on a daily basis to get us to 4-1 at home to have the best home record. What we did to allow Axel Easter to have the sacks that he did. So what is that? What is that special formula? And it was just a matter of the young guys being mentored by what was only 6 seniors. But that's a large group of young men having to be mentored, first by the coaches, steering them in the correct direction, but the follow-up from those older guys to say, listen, you have to take heed to the word and follow and trust that this will all work out. And early on with that disjointed schedule and all of that, it was easy to lose faith. But it was the steady hand of those 6 seniors that continued to work and mentor all of those young men and create a true team atmosphere and a group where you don't just break down on family, as so many teams break down on family. And I don't think that they really truly understand what that means. It's just, other teams do it, let's do it. And this truly is a family atmosphere because it's just the way the school's built. I mean, I think I heard the offensive line talk about when you asked them about what they liked about it, and they just talk about how close-knit it is and small community and all of that. It really is that way in the classroom, walking around on campus, in the community. Well, that spills over onto the football team. It's not just some other entity here now where we're totally different than everything that goes on.
Right.
So, to go through everything that happens on that daily basis, I mean, we need about 5 more of these shows. But at least you understand that it really is the mentoring from those 6 that trickled down into the handful of juniors that are now seniors, and believe it or not, we're still in single digits. But to make its way down to those freshmen. But what a beautiful place to be where we don't have freshmen that are being hazed or bullied. I mean, that's not what we do here. Different players would take different freshmen under their wing and do everything they can to make them great players. And I think it was a beautiful thing for Brevard College football.
Yeah, and well said. And like these gentlemen earlier said, what a way to go out. It's 2 big wins at the end of the season for that senior class. Now, Coach, what goes on in a football office between now and when
That's
we see you
the thing.
next?
You only see what you see on Saturday. Everybody wonders what you do all week, too. But no, obviously the number one thing that we need to get to is recruiting. Now, prior to that, what we will do is go through our own roster and see who are the returners, who wants to return, who wants to play another position, what our depth really looks like. And then once we assess our own roster, then you evaluate film to know what were our deficiencies and why were they such. Was it personnel? Was it scheme? Was it what the opponent was doing? So you really have to look at all of that, and you can't just look at a name on a board and say, okay, that guy's good, he's bad, he's great, he's wonderful, can do this, couldn't do this. There's a whole lot more that goes into the study of each player and where they're going to fit on the roster in 2019. Now, it's all projection because it's a different game when you get helmet and shoulder pads and interact, but at least you have some idea.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know what it is that we are looking for. And unlike other Division III institutions, we're not really trying to reach some kind of quota. We're not, hey, come one, come all, just come on in here. I mean, we really have certain criteria that needs to be met in order for these players to come, but we want ones that will fit what it is that we do.
Mm.
Now, there are certain times where they're great players, and we'll get them, and we'll change what we do to fit what they do well. But certainly, it's simple enough. I mean, pretty much anybody can evaluate film to know if a guy is talented. But you have to go so much deeper in that. So learning about, what makes the kid tick, how they learn, what kind of teammate they are. So a lot of the more important things to me rather than just their basic skill sets. So the coaches are all educated on that, and we've already parceled out the state, the upstate of South Carolina. So really I would love to have a team based on mountain football. That's what I would really love. If I could get the all-star roster from all the guys that play here in the mountain region, that'd be fabulous. And then, of course, we'll branch out and spread out. And I don't mind getting kids from Arizona because we have them. But as long as they'll want to stay, because it is a different part of the country. And if it's not for you, then the guys will want to leave. But anybody that spends any type of time here, the likelihood of their leaving is very slim.
Well, it's recruiting season in full bloom, and next week we're going to have Coach Dino on the show to talk even more about, what goes on there. Coach, just really appreciate you coming on the show every week and also this recap of the 2018 season. Congratulations on a great finish to the season and some big building blocks for the years to come, no doubt about it. Thanks again for coming on the show. It's been great, Coach.
You got it. Thanks so much, Phil. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. Head Coach Bill Khayat really putting a bow on the 2018 Brevard College football season with a thorough recap of the year. Brevard defeating Allen 46-10 in that season finale to cap off a great end of the year. 3 of 4 down the stretch in the win column. So women's basketball happening now at Bob Jones. And men's basketball will be in action tomorrow at the Bosch against Bob Jones. Hope you can check that out before your Thanksgiving plans kick into gear. Update from women's basketball: Brevard 46, Bob Jones 44, 4:50 left in the third quarter, so a tight one down there at Bob Jones, but hope to see you tomorrow night, 7:30 at the Bosch, men's basketball versus Bob Jones. And then next week, November 28th, Wednesday, women's and men's basketball doubleheader against Toccoa Falls, 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. at the Bosch. Well, I want to thank everybody who made tonight's show possible. Our guests, Jared Long, Nick Eubanks, Justin Parker, and head football coach Bill Khayat. Thank our sponsors, Arby's, Zaxby's, Holiday Inn Express, Hampton Inn, Ingles, Mission Sports Medicine, Comporium, Pepsi, and Dugan's Pub. We'll see you next Monday night, 7 p.m., right here at Dugan's Pub. Hope you can come on by. A great place to watch some games and enjoy some food and drink. And hope you can tune in if you're not able to come in here to Dugan's Pub on Facebook Live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Go Tornadoes.